You're listening to the Successors podcast with Kara Oosterhuis on RealAgriculture.com.
Welcome, folks. It's time for episode 13 of the Successors podcast. I am your host, Kara Oosterhuis. I hope everyone has been managing the winter well wherever you are. I know for me, the days are getting longer, and let me just say I am so darn happy that the sun isn't down until 6 p.m. now. Not having to use a headlamp right away to do some chores after work is always a positive. And you know, in all honesty, I used to make fun of headlamps, but then I got involved with the livestock world, and I will tell you that, hey, guess what? There's chores in the winter too. So they may look a little funny, but I am now pro headlamp. Anyways, today's episode is with someone I've had the opportunity to interview many times. But the thing with interviewing is there's always a topic, always something specific we're trying to cover. So I'm very excited to just dive in and learn about a broad spectrum of things today. Without further ado, I've got here Justine Cornelsen of Verdon, Manitoba. Justine, how's it going today?
Good. It's February, it's sunny, and it's above 0 right now. So I will take this.
I know, here too in Southern Alberta, and I was just kind of thinking, you know, I don't know if this is good or bad. Maybe this is the time of year when we could use a good dump of snow. We'll keep holding on for some moisture.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. We'll take a little more precipitation. I know it's not the ideal timing where you then have to move it and shovel it, but we do need moisture. So,
okay, so tell me about yourself. For the audience, who is Justine?
Wow. Gosh, when you frame it like that, I start to question, who am I? Professionally right now, I guess, or in career-wise, I am an agronomist. I work for BrettYoung seeds right now. Technical title would be agronomic and regulatory services manager. So I've kind of got a mix of a role professionally. When I think to myself outside of the work area, I don't know, super outdoorsy, involved with horses, just always on the go and doing stuff. And I think maybe that's what I am known for a little bit, is just always on the go. And, but yeah, gosh, that's a hard question to answer right off the top.
Right off the pop. Who am I? Does anyone really actually know?
Yeah, no, that one stumped me already. We're in for a long conversation here.
So, of course, we're going to talk about your personal life, but let's start a bit on your professional life. What do you currently do at BrettYoung?
Yeah, so I guess I'd be best known for my time at Canola Council. That's where I've spent, majority of my time in the ag world is at the Canola Council of Canada. I was there for almost 8 years. Right out of my undergrad degree, I received a job offer to be the summer student here in Manitoba for Canola Council. And that just kind of kept transitioning. From there, I filled a mat leave out in Alberta with Canola Council, and then a position back into Manitoba as an agronomy specialist. So yeah, that's where bulk of my time has been with that and working with council. So many great opportunities to explore agriculture, not only here in Canada, but around the globe. It opened another door for an opportunity for myself to also then take my master's degree. So I spent a little time at the University of Manitoba the last few years working towards that. So that's, I guess, the beginning. And like I said, with council, there was just so many opportunities and great experiences to meet people in different avenues within agriculture. So that really is what got me going. When I think back even further, a lot of my early jobs and, stuff in between university or over the summer during university, I worked for Parks Canada and then also agriculture and Agri-Food Canada. So some different government positions there, which I guess were kind of my intro into getting my role at Canola Council.
So it might not be directly agriculture related. However, I love to pick out the little nuggets, and I have to ask, what did you do at Parks?
Parks Canada. So my dad worked for Parks Canada. I would consider myself a Parkie. he traveled around to different national parks, and so obviously the family moved too. And he worked most of his career actually at Riding Mountain National Park. So that's where I grew up. So I was able to get some summer jobs there, and this is probably where I really got started interested in plants. I was on the gardening crew for Parks Canada. So the town site in Riding Mountain is called Wasagaming, and it's it's kind of the spot in the park. It's the small scale BAMF, but it has these beautiful flower beds all throughout. And they really just, supplement all the natural beauty that's happening within the town site there. But anyway, so I worked on the gardening crew. The lady I worked for, she could tell you every plant that was in those gardens. She could rattle off the scientific name. And I was just so amazed at that. And then to know, where these plants needed to go, how much light, how much moisture, what else could they be growing next to? She was just a wealth of information. And so I did 2 summers of that, and then ended up working in the wildlife lab at Parks Canada. So through Brandon University, where I attended my undergrad, I had several different small kind of like mini thesis projects with my role at Parks Canada in the summer. So one was actually looking and identifying all of the small-bodied fish on Clear Lake. I know that doesn't sound super exciting by any means, but I had all of these different traps around the lake, and we were monitoring what species were actually there. And then the second year, I had a white-tailed deer project, and it was actually looking at what the white-tailed deer did throughout the summer and when all of the tourists started to arrive. So Wasagaming is really a summer community. You have it not completely shut down in the winter, but it becomes pretty small, not a lot of tourists. So the summertime, all the campers come, all the RVs come. And so we wanted to know what those deer actually do. So I had a bunch of different collared deer. We were tracking how they would move, where they would go. And when they were having their fawns, they actually moved closer into kind of the high concentrated areas where the people were, and we figured this was likely because they were trying to avoid other predators within the park. So anyway, some different projects there, lots of great field experience. Got to work with bears. And obviously, with like any campground, there's always a bear issue here in Canada. So got to do different things like that. Got to really explore the park and all of its natural beauty. So that's some of the different things I did in my past life.
So you spent a lot of time with both plants and wildlife. I gotta ask, are you more the plants or the animal side? What do you prefer?
Really tough question again. In my undergrad, I actually took way more on the animal science, not much for plants. And I have a bunch of horses and a bunch of dogs, so I'll always love my animals. But sometimes plants are a little easier to work with. So it's kind of a half and half at the moment, but enjoy working with both. I've actually I shouldn't say transitioned out of working with people. At one point in time, I really wanted to go into the medical system or the healthcare route, and I opted for being outside and working with plants or animals instead. So
you mentioned your thesis program, and I know we've kind of known you as the Blackleg Queen from your time at the Canola Council. Was Blackleg a big part of your thesis?
Yeah. So in my master's degree, that was the focus. Going back, one of my first years in council, I got the opportunity to travel to Australia and work with Dr. Stephen Markroff and Dr. Angela Vanderlau. I was able to go there and see the extent of blackleg in canola in Australia and how devastating it was. I can still picture some of the fields thinking like, wow, this disease has such an impact here. So they really kind of like stemmed my curiosity. I love disease surveying. So here in Western Canada, the different provinces complete those surveys. So I've helped out in the past and I really enjoyed that. So I think that's what really got me started and excited about learning more about pest management and specifically disease management for crops. So coming back and taking everything that I'd learned from Australia, looking at their different rotational systems, their major gene rotation. It was then a project for me at Canola Council to really try to get the industry on board with identifying major genes. We've we see it work well there. We see it work well in the lab. But how is that going to work here in Western Canada for growers? So that's what my master's project ended up looking at, was seeing how effectively major gene rotation in canola would work in the field landscape. So that was with Dr. Delantha Fernando at the University of Manitoba. I actually worked with a bunch of different seed companies, and we were out assessing what the Leptosphaeria maculans, so the pathogen that causes blackleg, what those populations were doing when we were rotating and changing through different genes over time in the field.
So talk about professionally traveling like that. What things you kind of maybe learned, because it is definitely different than, just going to Australia for the sake of going to Australia.
Yeah, it was my first international trip. So that in itself was just like, wow, I'm going across the globe. This is crazy to think that I would never have thought I would have been in Australia. So going there and going and working, of course, there's little play. You got to see the land when you're there, but going there and working with, the industry leaders really on the blackleg front, was just, like I said, it's something that will always stay with me and really just stem this not creativity, but this excitement with me to learn more and find out more and realize how severe of an issue some of these diseases can be. And I've been to other production areas, and of course, every production area has some sort of challenges. And you can really learn from what's worked and what hasn't worked in some of these areas and try to implement them back at home in our own cropping systems. So I, with all of my work travel, that's something that really resonates with me. And, some of the work we do here is then used in other areas. So it's getting that research out and connecting the industry together. I really love looking at all the work at Canola Council and what other grower organizations are able to do to connect the globe on some of these topics. Is so extremely important because there's a lot of valuable information and experiences out there that we just don't know about yet.
You mentioned that it was your first international trip. Did you ever consider not going? Was it a hard jump to decide, yeah, okay, I'm good, I'm doing this? At first, I'm kind of a homebody. When you have animals at home, you've always got responsibility. I thankfully have a really good network at home, and my parents are fantastic. So whenever I'm gone for work reasons, they're able to take care of my horses. My mom has, I guess, as big of a passion for horses as I do. So lots of them are hers as well. So that always works. So it makes getting on a plane and going somewhere easier, knowing that everything else at home is taken care of. And that you are going to see something that you've never seen before, experienced before. And I'll kind of jump forward a few years, and I was able to go to China, actually to Wuhan, for an international clubroot workshop. Wow.
And same, I've dealt with and I've seen clubroot in Alberta, and I've seen our severe cases, but to go and then see just canola production there and to see clubroot, right? Just a complete change in how things are done. You move to kind of small scale crops. You have obviously land that's being flooded for rice production. And you think of all of the challenges there with trying to control clubroot. So what can we learn from that system in China and make sure that, we're doing here or that we're not doing here in Western Canada to manage that particular disease? And when you go to a country like that, it just really puts that emphasis on how important food production and make sure, ensuring that we are securing what we're producing here in Canada and that we're making a good quality product, because really the globe is relying on what we're able to do. So like I said, it just all puts it in perspective when you can see other areas and kind of get out of your comfort zone and out of your own home and see what else is out there.
You mentioned, of course, your mom's into horses as well. Did you grow up on a farm or an acreage, or how did that work?
So it's an interesting story or situation, but with my dad having a role at Parks Canada, we grew up in government housing. So I was actually born out in Alberta, but my parents at the time were living at or in Wood Buffalo National Park. And then Dad transferred here to Manitoba into Riding Mountain National Park. And we grew up at different government stations. And at the time, they were park warden stations. Now a lot of them are called district stations. And there's becoming less and less of them as times change. But the original kind of point with the warden stations were they were established for the wardens to live at and then maintain that park boundary, typically for hunters and things like that, and make sure that there was no poaching occurring and keeping an eye on the landscape and what was happening. So that's grew up on that. And at Riding Mountain, they had a really strong horse program. So my dad, we ended up moving to South Lake Warden Station, which was considered the park horse station. So my dad grew up on a community pasture in Saskatchewan. So he'd been grew up with horses and rode lots. So was able to really take that program and keep it going. Keep it going in a time where now we have, sleds and ATVs, and a lot of the work is done that way and no longer by horse, which is too bad because it's amazing what you can see on the back of a horse, and exploring the park boundary or into the park as well. It is just a completely different experience. So, but yes, we grew up with horses. My mom grew up in BC with jumping horses or 3-day eventing horses. So a lot of horse background, and really, gosh, I have pictures of me just as a wee little tyke on the back of a horse, and continue to still ride and compete on horses up until today. Actually, yesterday I rode. So,
did you show growing up? Were you in 4-H, or what sort of competitions were you doing?
Yeah, a mix of things. Started off with horse showing, so you'd go to all the little local fairs. A lot of the small communities in Manitoba would have their fair, so not only a horse show, but they'd have the baking competitions and everything else that comes together with a small town fair. But with my parents having kind of a Western and an English background, I actually competed in everything. I had a really great horse that we had bought as a young mare, and my dad had trained her, and she did everything for me. I still actually have her. She's 29 years old. She was a little gray quarter horse, and I could jump and barrel race. Like, she just did it all. So that's really, horse showing was the start, and then eventually transitioned into doing 4-H and showing through 4-H. And then got into barrel racing and high school rodeo. The High School Rodeo Association is really intricate. Here in Canada, a lot of the provinces have their own provincial association. And then down in the States, it's massive in the States. And so the national organization is down in the States. So Canada and the US, it's all under the same national body. But that really just kind of opened up new doors and opportunities, and got to travel, across Canada to compete, and also down into the States at the national show. And haven't really looked back since. That's kind of been the focus is rodeo events and definitely barrel racing.
How many rodeos would you do in a year? Do you have any idea?
It's with COVID, I haven't done much rodeoing the past. I've really moved into barrel racing, and you see a lot of added money into barrel. They're called 3D barrel racing or 4D. These events are huge now because you get so many entries, and they pay out people that, the top running horses, but also the horses that run a half a second or a second or 2 seconds off the pace. So it really splits up the money, and that's how you end up with massive entries. So kind of last year, kind of a somewhat normal year, lots of people were keen to host events. So I could, and even in Manitoba, go to a barrel racing, 2 or 3 nights a week, and then definitely every weekend, sort of starting like April all the way through to October. Manitoba, colder winters, so we don't do as much in the wintertime, but in Alberta, there's jackpots and lots of things going on. So it's becoming more and more, and we're able to actually continue riding and competing when the mild conditions are around.
So how many horses do you currently keep around right now? Are they just for barrels?
Gosh, I try not to count them because it's always just alarming when I do, but I think I'm around 15, give or take. We've got a few older horses that are on retirement, so they're just out grazing. I own a quarter horse stallion with my neighbor. His registered name is High on Heyday. His barn name is Sully. Yeah. But yeah, I'm barrel racing him, but we also do breed. So we collect off of him, and we'll ship semen around for people that are interested for their mares. So I do have a little bit of a breeding program, a few mares that we cross on him. But a lot of the young stuff that I have or the horses that I'm running currently are typically for barrel racing. One thing that's really kind of taken off in the last 10 years are barrel horse futurities. So what a futurity is, it allows horses of the same age to compete together. So they can't run until their 5-year-old year. So horses' birthdays, they're all classified as January 1st. So as of the new year, my stud is now 5, so I'm able to compete on him in barrel futurities. And then there's derbies, which are for 6 and 7-year-olds. So there's typically a kind of a bigger entry fee, a larger prize purse that's up. And yeah, you get horses of the same age, so they should have kind of the same background. But yeah, there's just so many new opportunities there, and that's just barrel racing alone. There's still lots of rodeo associations, both pro, semi-pro, amateur. So I've competed at different levels there. My brother's a team roper, so there's big money added team ropings all across Western Canada and down to the States as well. So there's kind of whatever you want to do, there's that opportunity now. And it's like I said, it's really taking off on all the people that are wanting to host events, which is so great to see. With after COVID, there was a bit of concern that a lot of people just weren't going to have that push or that ambition to host things. And a lot have come back in full swing. So great. And like I said, I take every opportunity with my horses to go somewhere. And like I said, if kind of all week you're at work and trying to hit up jackpots in the evening, and then gone somewhere kind of on the number one across the prairies trying to hit up some bigger events pretty well all summer long.
Do you head down to the States too, or do you typically stay in Western Canada?
Normally Western Canada. Last year I did take the stud Sully down to Oklahoma. So the barrel futurity season starts November 15th. So a little earlier than that, January 1st, but that's the first official futurity of the year, and it's called the Barrel Futurities of America. So I did haul him down there. It was really great. That was my holidays for last year, so it was great to get down there. It was an amazing experience to ride with the top futurity horse trainers in the world. So you had ladies and men there that's their profession. Like that's what they live and breathe is training horses. You had ladies there that were then competing at the national finals rodeo in Vegas, 2 weeks down or after that event. So it was just like I said, an amazing experience to see the horsepower and the talent of not only horses and trainers. So I just took so much in from that entire experience. So I'm excited that things are going to start gearing up here in Western Canada, and more events are going to start up. So I'm just in the process of getting my horses legged up and ready to compete. But it's easy to head down into the States, and it's way quicker for me to hit up something down in North Dakota or even Montana than it is to actually drive out to Alberta. So it is something that I'll probably continue to do, is keep jumping across the border.
You mentioned a brother. Do you only have one sibling?
Yeah, I've got one younger brother. He is an electrician in Brandon. Mentioned the horse component there. So he's very active in riding as well, mainly team roping horses. So he's had horses and competes on both the heading and heeling side of things. So very, very active in the horse world.
So to jump around, I realize I'm going a million different directions here, but your time as a parky, as you called it, is that like an army brat, by the way? What is a parky? Parky. That's what we would consider the locals, or people that have worked for Parks Canada. You're a parky, if you spend all your time in the town site or in Wasagaming. With Parks Canada, at different points in time, you'd wear when I worked there, it was the awkward green and red, like the Christmas color outfits for Parks Canada staff. So yeah, that was the term for the locals. We were the parkies. But where I grew up was right
right on the edge of the park boundary. So it's government land, but not, I guess it was just outside of the park, the Riding Mountain Park boundary, but still federal crown land. But it was a neat kind of oasis I was right next to Clear Lake. So you've got this untouched area, natural land, and then Riding Mountain itself is then surrounded by agricultural land. So it was neat that, I kind of had a mix of both worlds. So you had a real natural experience, but also then surrounded by farming, and different challenges. When I looked to Parks Canada at the time and Riding Mountain, TB was a really big thing in the elk population, but also then your surrounding cattle herds, right? And so taking those types of issues and working together to kind of find some common ground and some solutions. Riding Mountain kind of sits up, well, it's a mountain, so it's on the high ground. So everything, all the snow melts out of Riding Mountain and then drains off. So then you had overland flooding issues, right? So kind of trying to work with the farmers and the park staff to solve a lot of these issues was a really neat experience to have growing up, and actually then to work in it too, as being a staff member of Parks Canada. A lot of different moving parts and components and people that needed to be involved to help find some common ground on some of those issues.
Is that what got you involved in ag, or what kind of made you make that jump to decide you were going to do your undergraduate?
Yeah, you know what? I was really undecided. I knew I wanted to go to university. I just wasn't sure what I wanted to do. And, I had kind of went the route of just general sciences, was fortunate enough to get the job at Parks Canada over the summertime in between years. Just like I said, that was my few months at home. I was still able to ride, but able to work and then pay for my next year of university. When I got the job at Agriculture and Agri-Food Brandon, I actually worked that throughout the university year, which was great. I would just go when I wasn't in classes, and I worked in the barley breeding program there. So I got another just really hands-on in a different aspect of agriculture. I think at that point I was still really dead set on trying to do something in the medical field. I wasn't sure what, and I did some job shadowing. I actually got into the occupational therapy program in Winnipeg after my 3-year degree, and did some job experience, and was like, no, I have to be outside. I can't do this. I went back for my 4th year, just kind of like, what else do you do? I'm at a loss right now, and I must have been almost done, and I still didn't have a job. And someone had mentioned this Canola Council one, and that it's outdoors and hands-on, and you're not selling anything, you're just providing information. I'm like, okay, that sounds like something I could do. And we always joke at Canola Council when I started was, the only thing I really knew about canola was it was the yellow crop that my neighbors grew, and my mom used it to make cookies with. So it is kind of think about that and where I'd come from, and just all the experience and the training just throughout my years with Canola Council has really, I guess, developed me into the person I am today. I don't know what it was with ag. I was so wanted to be outside, and agriculture to me, I always thought sales. And I'm not a salesperson. I cringe as soon as I start thinking about it, but finding this extension world within agriculture just really resonated with me. When you do all the little job or, what you should do type quizzes, I can't remember what the actual name of them is, it always come back as a teacher. And I was like, this is a way for me to teach and be involved and share knowledge with other people in this type of extension role. And I'm still able to do that today in my current role. I'm able to take research and work with researchers and capture it and provide it to, sales teams that need that information to do their job with now. That's something I think that I maybe I shouldn't say excel in, but really enjoy is taking these different concepts and helping to apply them and make them more useful on farm or within other people's roles to help spread that information.
Is that your favorite part of the role right now, would you say?
Yeah, you know what? I'm loving the diversity. At BrettYoung, I'm able to work with, not only canola now, but also get to work with soybeans, corn, turf grasses, forages. So I'm loving this, I guess, for myself, learning about all of these new crops and applying, your basic agronomy to it and just exploring it really. But yeah, that's, one of the aspects of my job that I do really enjoy. And I kind of then translate that over to my horses as well. I love training young horses and watching them progress and learn. So it's something about that, like I said, that extension world or that education that I just really enjoy. I find that I kind of dive into topics and really try to get a good understanding of them. And you just can't. There's just so much out there. And it kind of comes back to then that resourcefulness. I know I'm not going to know absolutely everything about forages, but there's some specialists out there that live and breathe that. So developing that relationship and learning from those that are the specialists or that are doing the research in this type of work. And like I said, taking it back to barrel racing, I do the exact same thing. I'm always learning. I want to ride with different people. I want to learn from their experiences and see how I can then better my training style and applying it to horses. And like I said, just kind of back and forth between that work-life balance. There's a lot of similarities there.
You mentioned, at the beginning we were talking kind of how you weren't really sure what you were going to do and how you jumped in, you got that job offer to go to the council. Talk about, do you have any advice to anyone that's listening that might be taking their degree right now, and they have potential job offers on the table, but they're going, I don't actually know a ton about canola. Is this a job I can take?
Yeah. If I can do it, anyone can do it. So, you've taken what I would consider a non-farm girl, threw her into canola production and understanding the ins and outs of it. And when I look to my classes and Sam, I don't have your general ag degree by any means. They still just don't teach you those in-depth things, right? It's really high level. You cover a lot of different crops, and I've done a bit of teaching at the U of M for disease management type courses or epidemiology. So, you're learning about all these different diseases. You just can't take all of that information in. As long as you've heard it mentioned once or twice before, you at least kind of know the direction to maybe find out more about it. But for anyone that's questioning, take those opportunities, jump into something that's going to challenge you. And I actually just read Atomic Habits, which is by James Clear. Really great book.
It was
for
a
any
good
of those
one.
that are wanting. Yeah, right. Some motivation. And the thing that I guess really stuck to me was, taking on these challenges that are of manageable difficulty. So something that sits kind of on the edge or that perimeter of your ability is so crucial for you to then, for you to maintain that motivation to try and do it better or learn more about it. And I think that's what I've done my entire career is I'm just am pushing and just looking for a little bit more. And that keeps you so engaged and excited about the work you're doing and these new opportunities. And thinking back, gosh, it's almost now 10 years ago, taking that full-time position or that mat lead position out in Alberta. Like I left home, I left a bunch of my horses behind. I moved out there for this council role. And I'm so grateful that I did, because it just opened up so many other doors and the people I got to meet and work with and still get to do that. It's so amazing. So I guess, take the risk and open up those new doors and explore them, because there's some pretty cool opportunities out there.
On the topic of reading, I know you're a big nonfiction reader as well. What have you got open on your desk right now?
It's actually a little strange, but it's When the World Stops Shopping, and it's by what's his name, McKinnon. Can't think of his first name, but it is a kind of what if it just stopped? What happens? What would the impact be? Who would thrive? Who wouldn't? A lot of thought-provoking ideas there. there's one whole chapter on light pollution. That's the one type of pollution that we can reverse, and it's just a matter of turning off the lights. I was counting intersections last night on my way back from the Super Bowl, and I'm thinking, okay, if this doesn't have lights, how would that increase the risk of traffic accidents? Would they stay the same? What lights could we actually turn off across our landscape and be okay without? But anyways, a different type book.
Yeah, no, that sounds fascinating. It's always interesting to get those thoughts going when we can. Okay, any other messages you would like to send someone who may be listening?
We're ending on a tough one again here, Kara.
Start tough, end tough.
Yeah, we started off really tough with the who am I and
where do I fit into this world?
I'm sitting in my office right now, and I've got this map, and it says life is an adventure. And of course, it's when I'll call myself very basic here. It's a map where I can stick all those pins in, where I've been, where I want to go, and I've got all my travel pictures from every trip. I've got a different kind of 8 different pictures per theme, and I think that's one of the key things is just enjoying life's adventures, taking in these opportunities, exploring the unknown. It's just going to keep pushing and motivating yourself. So for anyone that's just getting into agriculture that may not be from an ag background, this community is so well knit and really can take you in so many different directions. So I really encourage, especially new students and people entering the industry to just embrace it all, take in all of those opportunities, because you'll never know where you might end up within this ag community. And like I said, the people I've been able to meet and interact with, there's so much knowledge there, and just kind of soak it all in, ask questions, and just keep exploring.
What's next on the travel list?
There's lots of horse travel in this upcoming year, but I've got a few pins. I would really like to actually go to Norway, Sweden, in that neck of the woods. So yeah, I'm thinking another Europe trip is needed here soon.
Awesome. Okay, well, thank you very much for your time, Justine. It's always great to catch up.
Yeah, it was fantastic chatting with you, Kara.
And thanks, of course, as always, to all of you who tuned into episode 13 of the Successors podcast. I very much appreciate the support. I always say you can reach out to me if you have any suggestions on guests, but the same goes for topics. Anything specific you'd like to learn on the Successors? Maybe something that I touched on with a guest that you would love if we would dive in deeper? Please send me an email, KOOSTERHUIS@realagriculture.com. Until next time, stay real, and thanks for listening to the Successors.